Hi, I'm Sophia Jessica, and this is Angel, and welcome to the fan carpet.
Okay, so it's wonderful to speak to you both. How are you both doing today?
Very well, thanks. Yeah, very good. We're both actually in Brighton. We've just discovered.
Oh, okay,
Yes,
Only
not in the
5 minutes
same
away.
house, alas.
Yeah.
okay, that's awesome. If we go back to the beginning, was there a defining moment for you both to get into the industry?
Oh, the industry. Do you mean the journalism?
Yeah,
Or
yeah, just the industry in general. Yeah.
hmm, wow, what do you? I mean, Lauren. So I'm the journalist, kind of behind the series, and Lauren is the granddaughter of the central character of our
Hmm.
story that we're telling. I have been I started the BBC, many years ago and trained and came up through there. What I trying to, I'm not sure I kind of, I'm not sure there's a defining moment, I'm afraid, for me.
Okay,
There's many years of doing a lot of work. That's what it was.
Yeah.
That's what it's been.
I
cool.
think I ironically I also work in television, so I film. I'm a journalist as well, I suppose, in my own right. Um, and I think also that's probably why this podcast appealed to me to take part, is because there's a story to tell, and
Mm.
I had always maybe thought about doing it myself, but I never had the guts to go ahead and speak to family members. So yeah, but I think yeah, to have a kind of interest and you're wanting to learn more about certain subjects, and I think that's just that's what it takes to get into journalism, really.
Absolutely. So extrasensory is a very interesting premise, and it gives people a lot of hope that there is something after we're not here anymore in our physical form. So what can you tell us about it?
I could this so I think yeah, it's a story. Essentially it's a real life family story, really, about my grandfather is probably the main character, John Pollock. 1950s England, and his belief that his two daughters, who sadly get killed in a kind of awful car accident, that they will come back to life in some other way. He at the time he believed in reincarnation, which was pretty staggering considering it's 1950s England. But he managed to convince people, and he also got a lot of traction and interest from across the world because of it. And it's sort of a journey of my discovery of this story as well. Like I had no minimal knowledge on it, other than the few little bits of secrets that I'd heard from family members. So it's kind of my journey of discovering the story of what happened.
Cool. Yeah, absolutely. And it's gripping. So you have Will Sharpe hosting. What made him the right person for the role?
Well, I was absolutely convinced he was the right person ahead of everyone else. I really wanted to have I felt like this story had there was such richness to the characters, but they're both the two central characters, John Pollock, Lauren's grandfather, and the American professor who comes and studies the family over decades. These two central characters were so deep and their motives were so interesting that it felt like almost quite a literary story to me. Um, and I wanted to have someone who is an amazing storyteller to really bring them to life with the narration for the story. And as a huge Will Sharpe fan and like loving the work that he does that sort of blends otherworldly elements with the real, with realism, he felt like it felt like it could be a story that he might tell. And we were lucky enough that he was interested enough in the story to work with us on it. And I'm very, like, really, really grateful that he did, because I think he brings so much to the telling of this. So because a lot of it, there's a lot that's dark here. There's a lot that is, spooky, and it's definitely the right season for listening to extrasensory, and takes you to places that, can be quite difficult. Um, but there's also, there's the quirks of this British family. There's the quirks of the life, from the past that we can bring out. And because of because Will's so funny, he can hopefully blend a little bit of that sort of, British humor. And like there's one bit where Stevenson, the professor, goes to meet Lauren's family and he's investigating what had happened, whether it was reincarnation, and they sit down to have tea, and Will just says, well, we are British after all. It's kind of like it's blending the two things that I think he does brilliantly.
Awesome. And so was a podcast series always the plan for Extrasensory?
Well, I mean, yeah, so I'll answer this because I actually had been interested in the Pollock twins for a long time, and I'd done some of the original journalism, the early stage journalism, to try and figure out what the true story is. Because when you start looking online and Google them, or I'm so fascinated in reincarnation, so I was looking at lots of different reincarnation stories. There's this real myth about the Pollock twins that even the visuals are very specific, because the creepy twins image. I mean, Lauren, if you Google the Pollock twins, images come up that aren't them, because they've become this mythological story, like almost like the origin story of the creepy twins. And I just felt that when I started to look into the story and realize that they were researched so heavily, not just by one academic, but by others as well, that there was this whole wealth of information and this whole twisting plot over decades. And to me, the reveals and all the things that happen, the extraordinary things that happen in this completely wild story, lent itself perfectly to a podcast series, because there's so much to say here. There's a big story here at this heart, even though it's a family story as well, Lauren's family story, full of secrets and reveals. There's also a lot that happens.
Absolutely. So for you both, what does it mean for you to be storytellers and tell stories in this way?
I think for me, I think it felt really cathartic to tell the story, because it's been something that's been such a secret in my family for a really long time. And I think being able to share it with the world when it's been hidden for so long as well, and the truth, there's been a lot of unknowns, like Rosie was saying, that kind of have come out through this podcast series. So I think just to kind of to put it out there to the world, and also at this time, in 2024, when people are more willing to listen to stories of reincarnation. Even when I was a kid and I used to talk about it to my friends, it would be laughed at, whereas now people are open to it, and I think it's now is the right time to kind of share those stories.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully, well, actually this year, but also this time of year, when people are thinking, when it's coming up to Halloween and the weather is changing and we're becoming more introspective, potentially, I am anyway, thinking about the bigger questions, thinking about what we think happens, our beliefs about what happens after we die and things like that. Hopefully it's the right time to sort of take a moment to think about these things, but at the same time enjoy this story, which hopefully will keep you hooked as you try and figure out with us, with Lauren and Poppy, who's the field producer on the project, figure out what actually happened here. And that is unknown until we did this work. I think, Lauren, I mean, you didn't know it, and no other journalists have looked at this.
Yeah, no, I knew very little, so there's been a lot of discoveries along the way for me.
A lot of surprises.
Yeah.
So obviously I'm not going to ask about the final findings, because that's the whole idea of the podcast. But were there any or have you got any memories from making Extrasensory that you'll remember for the rest of your careers?
I think, I mean, from my perspective, I think it was hearing, in the podcast, some of my family members are spoken to, and my family are kind of, that side of my family anyway, quite scattered, and we certainly never talk about this subject, never. So I think hearing their voices and hearing their opinions on the story and reincarnation and their own beliefs. And there can be people, I've got relatives across in America that might have the same, their theories on spirituality might align with the way that I feel, yet we've never spoken for 20 years. And it's that kind of connection to family that for me was really special, because it was so personal to me, the whole journey. So that will really stick with me. And certainly learning about my grandfather and the levels that he went to kind of really put forward his views on reincarnation and kind of do all this research and get people talking and listening to him was staggering. Like I had no idea of what he'd done, so I'm quite proud of him.
Well, for me, this documentary, this audio documentary, is the pinnacle of my journalistic career. As soon as I heard this story, I felt like, how did I not know this happened? How could this massive, what I think is this massive cultural moment, how could I have not known that there was a British story at the heart of reincarnation evidence gathering? And I felt, and the reason I love it as a journalist, there's so much to say and there's so much in these characters, but there's so much humanity in this story. It's so universal, the things that everyone is affected by death. Everyone feels loss and has to come to terms in their own way with losing people that they love. And this is one way, and it's in a kind of extreme story. It's absolutely extraordinary, but everyone will have their own version of it when they lose someone, especially losing a child as a parent. If that ever happens to you, and that's why I think it's such a great story to, such a privilege to tell it and work with Lauren, because it's so universal. There's so many universal elements in here that hopefully people will think about and enjoy thinking about.
Okay, awesome. So what are you hoping audiences take away from Extrasensory when they hear it?
I'd say a kind of openness to looking inwardly, like we were saying earlier. Now is a time to get introspective and have a think about your own beliefs, and potentially also to look at connecting with their family members and talking, having those conversations. And it's been a story that's been untold and unheard of for such a long time, and there's probably hundreds more, thousands more out there in the world. So getting people talking, and those awkward situations that maybe some family members don't want to talk about, but it's such a big part of somebody's history. I mean, this is 2 little girls that died, and were my aunties, and I didn't know anything about them. And I think, I'm really keen to know more, as much as I can, and I'm sure there's other people that feel exactly the same way.
Because when there's such a big trauma, it's so difficult for people to talk about it. It makes sense why they didn't want to, particularly British people at that time. It was kind of, things were repressed, and I don't know what damage that does, but I think there's definitely something really special about getting to really sort of not set the record straight, but really to tell this story and to uncover it, because, and in the modern, through your seeing of it as well, Lauren, because it is your story. This is your family.
I also think as well with my grandfather, I mean, I learn a lot about him in the podcast, which, the audience will as well. And, people will have mixed feelings on him, but I think it's nice to do him justice in some way, because he obviously was an avid believer in reincarnation and was, solo in thinking that, probably at the time. Not solo, but he didn't have many people that he could talk to, and certainly the majority of his family didn't believe him. So now to have those conversations and let them breathe and let his voice kind of speak on is important, because he definitely didn't get enough at the time, I don't imagine.
Yeah. And what are Apple like as a collaborator?
Well, I can answer that. And of course, they are excellent collaborators. I mean, what they're doing in terms of the creative space, I think, is unparalleled.
Awesome. So obviously, with their popularity, what do you think the future of cinema is?
With their popularity, you mean the stream?
With streamers' popularity, yeah, not just Apple, obviously, like Netflix and Paramount and Disney. You've got like so many different outlets now. That the cinema's kind of taken a backseat.
Well, it hasn't in my. I mean, I in my life it hasn't. I still think, there's like amazing films being made that are going on general release, like The Outrun. Have you seen that one? Which
I haven't yet.
Okay,
I'm a
so
big
like
fan, I'm a big fan of Saoirse though, but I haven't seen that yet.
You wait, because it blew me away. And Substance, we have some amazing
I went to see that. Yeah.
So I love, I think that there's room for all of it. There's room for things like Disclaimer, which is unbelievable on Apple TV. I'm just completely blown away by that. And then there's room for the substance in the cinema, and hopefully there's room for extrasensory as people are driving their cars and doing their cooking and washing up and want to listen to something. It's all, as far as, I just want to hear more stories, and we should have as many ways to tell them as we possibly can. And I want them to be told well and, in a dignified way. And yeah, I think so. That's what I think. I think, as much as possible. Can we have as much as possible?
We're always hungry.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So is podcasting where you'd like to stay as creators?
I mean, I'm not in podcasting myself. I have only taken part. I work in TV, but I mean, I'd always be open. I mean, I'm used to being behind the camera, so for this time it was me being on the microphone, so that was quite unusual. But no, I'm a big fan of any kind of journalism, really. I think it was amazing working with them. Really, really cool.
Awesome.
Yeah, I think it's I mean, there's a lot of craft, and many people in our team came from the BBC and worked many years at Radio 4 documentaries, and like when it was incredibly unfashionable to work in audio. So now at least it's fashionable, and we can get these massive audiences and tell more extraordinary stories because there's more interest in the craft that we have. And I love it. And I think it's a really valuable space for a particular type of long form journalism, and for people to enjoy things in a really intimate way. When they're walking their dog and, whatever they're doing, because most of the time when you listen to an audio documentary or podcast, it's multitasking. But it can really draw you in. And like with extrasensory, we wanted to take people to this town in northern England where these extraordinary things happen, and for them to feel like they're there. And that's what we were trying to do. And you can really do that in audio. With a lot of work and, if you pull it off, but that's what we're always trying to do, is to really immerse people in the story. And I think Will Sharpe helped a lot in that.
Awesome. All right. And just finally, where can we find you online to keep up with everything you're doing?
For Blanchard House, you can just go to blanchard-house.com.
Okay.
And on Apple TV, well, everyone knows what Apple is, I think. So you can find, So please do keep an eye out for what we're doing. We've got lots of new amazing things coming out next year as well.
Yeah. Anything you can tease?
No, unfortunately not without having sign off from some very important people, but
no worries at all.
More extraordinary stories.
Awesome. Well, we're looking forward to it, and thank you so much for talking to me today.
Thanks so much, Marc.
Thanks very much. Take care.
Bye.
Bye. Take care.
Thank you for watching The Fan Carpet. Please follow us on Facebook, X, and Instagram for more content. Bye for now.
me a sign, like the sea that leaves a trail along that shore. It's not your problem, it's mine. Everybody thinks that I'm okay. Sometimes I think I am too. I'm on the outside looking in, I'm waiting for the shockwaves to begin. Oh, won't you let me hold you for one time? Just a rainy day in a London cafe, a London cafe. So give me one last serenade. Say to me, or swear at me till the night turns into day. And it was a shame when daylight faded, because we didn't notice at all.
Thank you for watching The Fan Carpet. If you like this video, be sure to click that thumbs up button at the bottom of your screen. And also be sure to subscribe to the Fan Carpet YouTube channels. They're absolutely free and so much fun too. Be sure to check out the official website, thefancarpet.com. Also, you can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to stay up to date with reviews, competitions, the latest news, and so much more.